I don't even know how to begin this. I guess if you had told me a year ago that the woman I married, the one I thought I'd grow old with, would betray me with my ex, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, sitting in the dark with a whiskey in my hand, looking back at the day it all started unraveling. My name's Matt, I'm 38, blue-collar, small-town guy. Run my own auto repair shop. Honest work, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and then some. I married Claire 5 years ago. She was a nurse, sharp, warm, beautiful in a simple way. Not flashy, not loud. Just real. That's what I loved about her. We didn't have kids, talked about it, but life got in the way. Between her night shifts and my 10-hour days at the shop, we just kept pushing it down the road. But that was okay. I thought we had time. What I didn't know was that Claire had already started drifting. And she wasn't drifting toward some guy at work or some random bar fling. She was drifting toward someone much closer to my past. Her name was Rachel. And yeah, that Rachel. My ex from back in college. The one who broke me so bad it took years to even think about dating again. She cheated on me with one of my best friends back then. Left me in pieces. And somehow, years later, she walked right back into my life. I first noticed something off with Claire about 6 months ago. We were at a grocery store, and I caught her staring at someone across the parking lot. It was a long, locked-in stare. I asked who it was, and she just shrugged it off. Nobody, she said, just thought I recognized someone. But she looked shaken. That wasn't like her. After that, things started to shift. She got distant, quiet. She'd smile, but it never reached her eyes. Her phone, always face down. Late night, nurse meetings. Showers right after getting home. You know the signs, even if you try not to admit them. I tried to tell myself it was stress, burnout. We'd had arguments before, nothing serious, but we always came back to each other. But this time, it felt different. There was something underneath, something I couldn't name. Then one night I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It just said, "You should know what she's doing behind your back." And below it, a photo. Not graphic, but enough. Claire, sitting at a bar with a woman, holding hands across the table. Intimate, familiar, and I knew that face. Even after all these years. Rachel. I stared at that picture for a long time. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like it had collapsed inward. It didn't make sense. Why her? Why the one person who already gutted me once? I didn't confront Claire that night. Or the next. I needed to be sure. Needed to understand. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started digging. Checked her messages. Nothing. She used apps that auto-deleted. But she wasn't careful enough to hide everything. I found a hotel receipt in her purse. Just one. Dated last Thursday. Downtown. I called in sick the next day and drove to that hotel. Spoke to the front desk like I was her brother. Said I was worried. And they let slip something they shouldn't have. Yeah, they're regulars. Always ask for the corner suite. Very discreet. They, not she. I left with my stomach in knots. Drove home in silence. And when I got there, Claire was in the kitchen, like nothing was wrong. Stirring pasta, humming. I kissed her cheek and acted like everything was fine. But inside? Inside I was already planning. Not just for revenge, for everything. After I found out it was Rachel, the Rachel, everything about Claire started to look different. Her laughter was a little too forced. Her phone, always guarded. She'd started going to these weekend nurse seminars that somehow never showed up on her calendar. I'd ask about them, and she'd dodge the details. I wasn't even looking for lies at first. I was still hoping I was wrong. But once I knew, every word out of her mouth sounded like a test. I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want to blow it all up in some dramatic explosion. I wanted the truth. Quiet, complete, undeniable. And when I got it, I wanted to leave her with nothing. Just like she left me, only she didn't know it yet. So I started keeping records. Every weird excuse, every time her location didn't match her words. I even went as far as installing a hidden camera in our living room, not something I'm proud of, but I needed evidence. Hard proof, not just for me, but for what I was planning. One night she came home late, past midnight, and I was already on the couch pretending to be asleep. She tiptoed in, and I caught a glimpse of her in the hallway mirror. Lipstick smeared, her blouse buttoned wrong, She paused, staring at herself. Then I saw it. She smiled. Not at me, at her own reflection, like someone just home from a date. It gutted me. I wanted to jump up, scream, throw something. But I didn't move. I let her go to bed. I sat there for another hour, replaying that smile over and over. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made eggs. Asked if I wanted coffee. I nodded, smiled back, and played my part. And then I made a call. To Rachel. She didn't pick up, of course. I wasn't even sure she'd answer an unknown number. But a few minutes later, I got a text. New number. Who is this? I replied. Matt, Claire's husband. The typing bubble popped up immediately, then disappeared. Then came back, and all she sent back was, I guess you know. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just cold acknowledgement. And somehow, that made it worse. I responded. How long? She didn't reply for hours. I went through the rest of the day in a fog, fixing cars at the shop like I was on autopilot. Around 6, my phone buzzed again. Since the night we ran into each other at the gallery. Almost a year. I didn't plan for this. Neither did she. I stared at that message for a long time. The gallery. That was the fundraiser Claire dragged me to last year. I remember now. Rachel was there, across the room. I barely spoke to her. Claire said nothing afterward, but I bet they talked when I wasn't looking. Or maybe they already had. She was my ex. Claire knew that. She'd listened to me cry about that betrayal. About how Rachel cheated. And still, she went to her. It was betrayal stacked on betrayal. At that point, something inside me shut off. The sadness? It started to burn away. Not instantly, but it was the beginning. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for honesty. I wasn't even going to confront her, not yet. I was going to make sure when she finally saw it coming, it would already be too late to stop it. Once I had the truth, solid, undeniable, I stopped being her husband and started becoming her ghost. Claire didn't notice the change right away. I was still warm, still present, still slept beside her, still asked how her day went. But inside, I was gone, a shell, watching, listening, planning. Every time she smiled at me, I smiled back and filed it away as one more lie. I kept my cool for a reason. I needed time. Divorce isn't just about leaving, it's about strategy. And I wasn't about to leave my house, my money, or the business I built with bloody knuckles while she played footsie with my ex. That meant I needed leverage. So I started with the bank accounts. I set up a separate business account for the shop, totally legal, since I was the sole owner on the LLC. I rerouted all new invoices and payments to the new account and left the old one alone so Claire wouldn't get suspicious. Then I opened a personal account in my brother's name. He owed me a few favors, and started moving small chunks of cash every week. Nothing that would flag her radar. Just enough to quietly build my war chest. After that, I called a lawyer. A woman named Anna Morales, sharp as hell and meaner than a copperhead in a corner. She asked me 2 questions. You want out? And, you want blood? I told her I wanted both. She smiled and said, then stop talking and start recording. So I did. Audio, texts, screenshots, pictures. Every time Claire went out and lied about where she was, I logged it. I matched it against her phone's location data. Yeah, I cloned her phone. Simple software, nothing illegal if it's your spouse's device. I didn't want to snoop. I wanted proof. And the proof piled up fast. One night she said she was working an overnight shift. Her phone showed her at Rachel's condo. All night. Another night she told me she was helping a coworker move. Location: a boutique downtown, closed hours. Same place I later saw a picture on Rachel's Instagram. Date night, just us. They weren't even hiding it from everyone, just from me. At the same time, I kept my own mask on tight. Came home with flowers. Took her to dinner. Played the role so well she probably thought she'd gotten away with it. But every smile I gave her came with another move on the board. I checked the deed on our house. Turns out, it was only in my name. We'd refinanced it last year and, stupidly on her part, she let me take care of all the paperwork. That meant I could sell it or keep it without her approval, as long as I handled the debt. Claire had no idea. She just assumed everything was 50-50. It wasn't, and neither was what came next. It started small. The first time Claire noticed something was off, we were in the kitchen. She opened the cabinet where we keep the checkbook, and it was gone. Just gone. She looked around, frowned, asked me if I moved it. No idea, I said, casually flipping a pancake. Maybe you put it somewhere else? She nodded slowly, lips tight. Didn't push it, but I could tell, her radar was up. That's the thing about cheaters. They expect betrayal because they know what betrayal looks like. After that, she started watching me more closely, asking more questions, trying to read my mood. I gave her nothing but kindness. Calm, even tones, warm smiles, just like she gave me when she was sneaking off with Rachel. And that ate at her. I could see it. Then, about a week later, she came home early. I was in the garage, finishing up some invoices. My laptop was open. She rarely bothered me out there. But this time, she walked in without a word, slow and silent. She was behind me for a solid 5 seconds before I noticed. "What are you working on?" she asked, tone sweet but sharp. I smiled. "Just work stuff. Orders, parts, boring stuff." She nodded, pretending to believe me. But her eyes scanned the screen, quick and hungry. Too bad all the real files were on a locked drive. She wouldn't find anything there. It was the first time I saw doubt creep into her confidence. The first crack in her performance. A few days later, I made my next move. I changed the Wi-Fi password. Simple, petty, even, but effective. She noticed right away. "Hey, did the router reset? My phone's not connecting." "Oh, yeah," I said, barely looking up from the newspaper. "I had to reset it after a storm. Just haven't gotten around to updating your phone yet." She waited. I didn't offer the new password. She didn't ask. It was a quiet standoff. And I won, because she knew asking might invite questions. Like, "Why do you care so much about having access to the network?" From there, the tension grew like a leak in the ceiling, slow, silent, deadly. I could feel it every time we sat across from each other at the dinner table. She'd poke at her food, glance up at me, and smile. But the smile was tight, nervous, practiced. She was starting to feel what I'd felt for weeks. Something wasn't right. But she couldn't figure out what. That's when I knew I had her. Then, one night, I dropped a grenade. Quietly, we were sitting on the couch, watching some mindless show. She was curled up next to me, trying too hard to be close. I casually asked, "You ever talk to Rachel anymore?" Her whole body tensed. Just a flicker. Just for a second. "No," she said too quickly. "Not really." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just remembered you guys used to be close back in the day. Before us." She smiled again. "Fake." "Yeah, funny how people just fade away." I nodded. Inside, I was screaming. She didn't know it yet, but Rachel had already flipped. After our first text exchange, I ghosted her for days. Then I texted again. "I'm not mad. I'm just trying to understand how it happened." She bit. Called me that night. Said she was sorry. Claimed she didn't mean to fall for Claire, that it was complicated. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I listened. Because I needed her to talk. And she did. She told me dates, names of hotels. That Claire initiated it. Reached out after the gallery night. That Claire told her we were in an emotional rut. That Claire said I had pulled away first. It was all lies, of course. But I let Rachel think I believed her. I let her feel safe. Because now she was another pawn in the game. And Claire? She had no idea I had her entire affair mapped out. Names, locations, messages, timeline, recorded calls. I wasn't gathering evidence anymore. I was preparing to use it. The first thing I took from Claire was peace. I didn't touch her stuff. Didn't raise my voice. I didn't even change how I looked at her. But the silence? The quiet smile, the calm tone, it started to feel like a trap to her. She didn't know what was coming, and that made her nervous. I could feel it building. She started trying harder, coming home earlier, cooking dinner more, laughing at stuff that wasn't funny. Our bedroom. Suddenly she wanted to be close again. But it wasn't love, it was guilt, desperation wrapped in perfume and fake smiles. I let her play house. Because every day she tried harder. I pulled something else away. The second thing I took was control. One Friday, she asked if I could transfer a little cash into our joint account. Said she had a surprise planned for us. Weekend getaway, she called it. I played dumb, asked where. She dodged. So I said sure, told her I'd do it by lunch. Instead, I walked into the bank and closed the account. Left her exactly $8.43. I had already moved everything, slowly, quietly, to a personal account under my name. One she had no access to. It wasn't illegal. I hadn't stolen anything. I just reclaimed what was mine. I came home that night and kissed her on the cheek like usual. The next day, I heard her in the bedroom, swearing under her breath, phone in hand. She didn't say anything to me about the missing money. Not yet. She wanted to act like everything was fine. But inside, I knew, she was panicking. The third thing I took was the house. On Monday, I met with a real estate agent and signed preliminary paperwork to list it. Since the deed was in my name, all I had to do was notify her of my intent to sell. Not ask permission, just notify. I didn't even tell her in person. I left the letter taped to the fridge. She found it that night. Matt, she called from the kitchen, voice tight. What is this? I walked in, drying my hands with a dish towel. It's what it says, I replied. I'm selling the house. Our house? I shrugged. Technically, it's mine. Paperwork's in the drawer, if you want to check. Her mouth opened, then closed. She wasn't used to being on her heels. Claire was always the one with the words. The calm tone. The high ground. Not anymore. That night, she didn't sleep next to me. I woke up alone, her side cold. I figured she'd gone to Rachel's. Fine by me, because while she was gone, I took the next step. The fourth thing I took was her security. I emailed her work, told them I'd be handling all future health insurance and benefit questions separately, since we were entering divorce proceedings. Didn't accuse, didn't elaborate, just a clinical, polite heads up to our. She found out 2 days later, walked in the door, shaking. You contacted my job? I looked up from the kitchen table. Just clarifying coverage stuff, since I'll be filing soon. You can't just, Matt, what the hell are you doing? I'm doing what you did. Just slower. She stared at me for a long time. I could see it in her face. She finally knew. The mask cracked. I stood, walked over, and looked her dead in the eye. I know about Rachel, I said. Her lips trembled. Matt, I know everything. My voice was calm, flat. Where, when, the lies, the hotels, the messages, all of it. She tried to speak again, but nothing came out. Just a shaky breath. Then I handed her a flash drive. Copies of everything. Keep it. You're gonna need it when you try to lie to your lawyer. She didn't even reach for it. Just stood there, holding her breath, as if maybe time would stop and give her a do-over. But time doesn't stop, and I wasn't finished. Once I decided to take everything, I realized revenge wasn't a single moment. It was a sequence of small, legal moves that together emptied her world. First, Anna filed. Quiet, clinical, no dramatic posts, no midnight confrontations, just a stack of papers and a filing fee. I didn't want a courtroom full of gossip. I wanted a trained, cold system to do the work for me. The divorce petition cited irreconcilable differences. The evidence we had was attached as an exhibit. Adultery, in the form of dated messages and photos, isn't always a magic bullet in modern family courts, but with a good lawyer it becomes leverage. Leverage to negotiate deadlines, to deny spousal maintenance, or to show bad faith in financial dealings. Anna used the facts like a scalpel. At the same time, I delivered the other cut that would hurt in ways shouting never could. I walked into Claire's workplace and asked for our. I didn't yell. I explained, softly, that I'd found proof her nurse's licensing credentials had been misrepresented in ways the hospital might need to know. Not about her sex life, not about who she loved, but about patient safety standards and falsify. Declarations. That sounded sterile and important. HR listened. The hospital has a lot to lose for scandal or for staff who put themselves or their loyalties ahead of patients. They put a hold on her shifts pending review. She called me frantic. I stayed calm. I told her I was sorry, that I didn't want to destroy her career, but that she'd made choices that left me with no option. I handed copies of the affair timeline, the messages, the hotel receipts, and a selection of recorded conversations to Anna. She used them to negotiate an immediate temporary separation of assets. Because the house was in my name and the shop in mine, there wasn't much to split, but there was also her retirement, her small stock holdings, and the little savings she'd tucked away. With the threat of a public, messy trial, Anna forced her hand. Claire accepted a settlement that was humiliating to her sense of fairness. She signed forms assigning her name off the property deed, relinquishing claim to the shop's accounts, and agreeing to a paltry lump sum for moving costs. In exchange, I agreed to avoid dragging intimate details into a courtroom fight that could have burned both our names. It looked like I'd won everything on paper. But paper is only the shape of things. What I wanted was the rest, the life she'd been building. I quietly contacted a handful of people who mattered in both our lives. The friends who ran our neighborhood circle, the committee at the community clinic where she volunteered, the few mutual friends who still called either of us. I didn't publicize what happened on social media. I sent private messages with copies of the evidence and let truth do the rest. Some people were shocked, some were angry, a few sided with her at first and then stopped answering my calls. The social fallout was brutal in unexpected ways. Invitations stopped, small favors dried up, and the polite good mornings in the grocery aisle turned into cold, quick nods. She had once been the center of that social orbit. Within a month, her calendar was empty. And then the job. With HR already reviewing her case, the hospital placed her on paid administrative leave while they investigated policy violations connected to her conduct and those of an outside party who'd had access to staff-only areas. The investigation didn't feel like revenge, it felt like a clean, bureaucratic removal. Yet watching her badge be deactivated and seeing the look on her face when she came home with an envelope from HR, that was when I felt the remoteness of what I'd done. She had bills, she had a life that relied on steady shifts. Watching the practical consequences fall into place was worse for her than any shouted fight could have been. She tried to call her mother. Her mother half listened, then asked to come over. When she met me, there was no hysteria, just a careful distance, the kind family members adopt when the scandal is real and they need to protect their own reputations and children. I didn't gloat, I didn't post anything. I folded what I had into motions and appointments. Meeting with the realtor, signing off on listing photos, sitting in a conference room while Anna negotiated the settlement. I picked up the last of the joint mail and redirected it. I changed passwords. I closed what needed closing, filed what needed filing. Each small legal step burned a little more of her independence away. The worst part wasn't losing things. It was watching her shrink. She went from confident, perfumed, and certain to someone who kept her voice low and her head down. She tried to bargain, begged for a better cut, offered to sign a non-disclosure, even promised to move away. I accepted none of it. The bargain had been struck. She had chosen the person who hurt me. She had broken a trust that had been almost sacred to me. My measure of pain had been converted into leverage, and I used that leverage to make sure she felt, as I had felt, the consequences. The community that respected her began to whisper. The hospital ultimately suspended her with a recommendation for remedial meetings before reinstatement. The board said only time would tell. The house was on the market. The shop's books were clean under my name. Claire left with a duffel bag I'd packed for her from the closet, simple clothes, her toothbrush, the few items she said she wanted. She left the rest. When she walked out the door that final time, she didn't look back. She dropped the keys into my hand like a confession. We didn't speak as the realtor's photographer arranged the living room for photos. I watched her go to the car and drive away with a look that was part fury, part regret, and part blankness. The face of someone who finally understood that a private life could be made public the hard way. That night I sat on the back steps and thought about what I'd done. I had taken everything she could lose without breaking the law. I told myself it was fairness. I told myself it was justice. But the truth was simpler. I had been hurt and I'd made the world smaller for the person who hurt me. It felt righteous and empty at the same time. I wondered, not for the first time in these months, what this would mean for me long term. The house sold. The shop stayed. The money moved where it belonged, to pay my lawyer, to buffer the quiet life I wanted. But the shape of what was left didn't feel like victory so much as a crater where two lives had sat. Claire's phone stopped ringing. Her friends stopped inviting her. Her shifts at the hospital dried up. And though I had the house and the shop and the legal win, the thing that mattered, the small daily warmth of a shared life, was gone. I had gotten revenge, and the silence that followed was colder than I expected. It's strange how quiet victory can be. You think revenge will sound like thunder, doors slamming, confessions shouted, apologies begged for. But when it finally arrived for me, it was silent. Just the sound of my boots on hardwood as I walked through a half-empty house that used to echo with her voice. A week after she left, the house sold. I stayed just long enough to box up the tools, the photo albums, and the things that actually meant something to me. When the realtor dropped the check on the table, I stared at it for a long time. It should have felt like closure, but all I felt was the weight of everything that had been burned down to reach this point. I didn't hear from Claire for nearly 2 months. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. Then, one night, I got an email. Short, I know you don't want to hear from me. I deserve everything that happened. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I read it once, closed the laptop, and sat in the dark for a long while. Not because I forgave her, I didn't. But because for the first time, the anger didn't rise up inside me like fire. It just sat there, quiet, tired. The thing about revenge is that it doesn't end when you win. It ends when you stop needing to win. For a while, I tried to fill the silence. Worked longer hours at the shop, started running again in the mornings, fixed up my dad's old pickup just to have something to do with my hands. People in town eventually stopped asking how I was doing. They knew enough, and I was fine letting them think whatever they wanted. Small towns remember scandals longer than birthdays. One afternoon, I saw Rachel again. It was at a gas station outside town. She didn't notice me at first, shorter hair now, sunglasses, looked older somehow. When she finally did, she froze for a second, then gave me a small nod. No words, just that, and honestly, that was enough. There wasn't anything left to say between us anyway. She was part of the story, not the ending. The ending was me, standing there, realizing that I didn't hate her anymore, or Claire either. I'd done what I came to do. I'd taken back control, every piece they'd tried to take from me. And now? Now there was nothing left to take. A few months later, I moved to a smaller place near the lake. 1 bedroom, simple. I brought my tools, a few old photos, and a dog I rescued from the shelter. I didn't decorate much, didn't need to. Every morning, I brew coffee, step onto the porch, and watch the water turn gold with sunrise. That's peace. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Sometimes I still think about her. Not with hate, not with longing, just memory. The life we built, the one she burned, and the ashes I gathered piece by piece until I could stand again. If you asked me now whether it was worth it, the revenge, the planning, the cold precision of it all, I'd probably say yes. But not for the satisfaction. For the clarity. Because revenge doesn't fix what's broken. It just clears the rubble so you can finally see the wreckage for what it is, and walk away from it. That's what I did. Walked away. Left her with nothing she hadn't already lost the moment she betrayed me. And for the first time in years, I slept without wondering who she was with, or what lies were waiting for me when I woke up. Just quiet. Just me. And that was enough.